pick up, and then we'll go.
We'll never surrender.
Skin boots on a Saturday night.
Hello guys, this is the Gaming Revolution here and welcome back to an all new Black Ops 3 Zombies video. And just yesterday, Treyarch released their second issue of the Call of Duty Zombies comic books, and within that second issue, on the very last section of it, they included a brand new Ascension loading screen, which we're going to be talking about and breaking down today. Now, I'm not going to be going over the overall storyline of the comic book. Essentially, all you really need to know is that Russman's group, Broken Arrow, have essentially been using Division 9's research, obviously the Japanese group that we saw within Zetsubo no Shima, and essentially they've been using Division 9's research to experiment with lab animals. But essentially the experiment just went completely berserk and the animals pretty much killed everyone apart from Russman, and the lab animals essentially escaped and they began attacking the facility, and they're essentially these really weird creatures, and they even attack the zombies as well. At the very end, they grab an element that they find, and then they're essentially overrun by zombies. And then as the zombies are advancing towards the transit crew, that's essentially the cliffhanger, that's where the comic book ends. And then we see this brand new Ascension loading screen, and this brand new Ascension loading screen is crazy. There's a lot to talk about regarding this, and obviously the first thing that probably jumps to your mind is, could we be seeing an Ascension remake within the future for Black Ops 3 Zombies? I think it is possible. I don't know whether we will be seeing it within Black Ops 3 Zombies as in a DLC 5 within 2017. That could be a possibility, that maybe this is what it's teasing at, or maybe we'll see an Ascension remake within Treyarch's next Call of Duty Zombies title, whatever it may be, but that'll be releasing in 2018. Leave your thoughts down in the comment section down below. Do you think this new Ascension loading screen is teasing at a remake of Ascension? It'll be interesting to know your thoughts. But so far we have gotten 3 new loading screens. We've gotten a new loading screen of Moon, we've gotten a new loading screen of Nuketown, which was in the first issue of the Call of Duty Zombies comic books, and now we've finally got a brand new Ascension loading screen. However, the Ascension loading screen is the most interesting out of all of them, because if you take a look at the loading screen, there's some huge differences between the original and the new loading screen. The first difference is that on the right we have a teleporter, and then we have some sort of scientists coming out of that teleporter on the original Ascension loading screen. However, on the new Ascension loading screen we have a keeper coming out of that teleporter. Now, I'm not sure what that's suggesting at. Maybe it's got something to do with the corrupt keeper on Der Eisendrache, because obviously the keeper terrorized the moon base with Dr. Groff on and pretty much killed all of the 935 scientists and stuff like that. And I've got a feeling that maybe this ties into that somehow, but I'm not really sure how. But the most interesting thing is that if we look on the left of the loading screen, on the original loading screen we just had a scientist within Ascension, you know, he's just sort of scripting out some blueprints and stuff like that with some sort of machine that he's building within the background, which actually kind of looks like the Sophia robot from Gorod Krovi, which is weird because, you know, they weren't really planning the storyline back then, but maybe that's just me making out things that aren't really there. But on the new Ascension loading screen, Dr. Monty is there and he's drawing out blueprints, and we can't tell what these blueprints are, and then it appears that he's within his perfect world. We've got the bright blue sky with the lush green trees, and we've got the clouds, pretty much perfect. Now, we're not really sure what this blueprint is that he's carrying out, but a lot of people have been thinking that it could possibly be the KN-44 blueprint that we see on the Giant when you put together all of these scraps of paper. We obviously have the KN-44 inside the summoning key, and then we have the different, you know, universes in each of the corners. I don't think it is that, because if we take a closer look zoomed in here, we can see that on this blueprint to the right, there is actually a rocket there. So what I think is going on here is I think we have the original storyline, you know, the storyline that Zelensky was planning out, and then I think what Blundell's done is he's introduced this Dr. Monty character, and what this Dr. Monty character has done is he has completely rewritten the storyline to provide for his perfect world. Dr. Monty is not a god. He acts like a god, but I definitely think he has an evil agenda, and for some reason he wants this perfect world to flourish, and for some reason he's completely kind of rewritten and jumbled up the storyline. It would appear as though it's Dr. Monty's doing, as he is drawing out, you know, the plans for what appears to be the storyline. It's like Dr. Monty is carrying out the storyline. He's, you know, working alongside with us, giving us bits of help along the way like he did with Ingorod Crovey. He steps in every now and again, but generally he stands back from the sidelines and lets the events carry out that he's put forth in motion. But this is definitely very interesting because throughout the Zombies storyline there's been tons and tons of hinters towards the fact that the Zombies storyline was all just, a comic book. Each of the maps obviously start off with the loading screen, which is a comic book, and they have like pens on the side of it and things like that. And then we saw Mob of the Dead, and Mob of the Dead was this first, map where we saw red eyes, and I believe it was the first map where we've broken the cycle as well. And the interesting thing about this is a lot of speculation began to arise that possibly the Weasel had written the entire Zombies storyline as a comic book, but it seems like that was Dr. Monty, because obviously the Weasel was a comic book writer at some point. I'm just trying to think what the big connection is here, because this is very, very interesting indeed. But moving further on the new Ascension loading screen, in the center of the loading screen, we now have the blueprints of a dragon from Division 9. It's the same one that we believe we see on Zetsubo no Shima, and there's some writing there which I can't really make out, and then we've got the normal Ascension rockets behind that. However, on the original Ascension loading screen, it just had, just some bland old blueprints. I'm not really sure what they are entirely. I don't think that's really that important. I think the reason why that blueprint is there is because, the comic book is obviously about how Broken Arrow have been using Division 9's technology pretty much. But the next interesting thing is that on the original Moon loading screen, we've got some regular refrigerator looking thing. However, on the new Moon loading screen, we have Samantha looking into a gobblegum machine. Now, this is where I think it gets interesting. Within Der Eisendrache, we saw some paintings that were drawn by Samantha as a child, and within these paintings, it sort of predicted how, the storyline would carry out within Black Ops 3 Zombies. There was one picture that showed Samantha having dreams of spiders, and then we saw spiders within Zetsubo no Shima. There was one drawing where there was a keeper looking over Samantha while she was sleeping. There's some big part of the storyline we're missing here where Dr. Monty and Samantha sort of intertwine and connect. There's something big that goes on here. We haven't seen Samantha throughout the entirety of the Black Ops 3 Zombies storyline. The last time we even heard of her was on Origins, where we were supposed to close the loop, and we failed to close the loop within the Black Ops 3 Zombies storyline. We were supposed to close the loop and stop this reoccurring cycle which has been happening for eons, and we were supposed to stop our characters from reverting back to premise, but unfortunately we failed. Now, what I find interesting is obviously on the other loading screen, the New Moon loading screen, we now have an image of Samantha with her teddy bear within Shangri-La. I think there's definitely been some sort of big connection that we're missing here between Dr. Monty and Samantha. I don't really know what Dr. Monty's true purpose is, because he wants to carry out this, perfect world, but it only ever exists due to the reoccurring cycle. So what is his end goal? To just let the cycle continue forever? Because I think there's a deeper meaning to Dr. Monty than that. There's some sort of deeper evil meaning. He wants to take control, and he has taken control, and it seems like he is indeed reverting. And from the looks of it, he's sitting within his perfect, heaven-like perfect world, and he's writing out and drawing all of this stuff for the comic books. He's essentially writing out the entire storyline because he is a godlike figure. That's how Jason Blundell seems to be portraying Dr. Monty, but he definitely has an evil agenda. And a lot of people think that obviously we restart the cycle at the end of Revelations, but a lot of people think that when we break the cycle within Mob of the Dead, not only does it break the mini cycle within Mob of the Dead, but it stops the overall zombie cycle with Primus. It stops the Primus cycle, because obviously if Weasel kills the other characters, because then it could prevent Richtofen and the other characters getting their blood vials from Mob of the Dead, which means that they won't phase out of existence, and it won't create this paradox which allows them to stay within the perfect world when they should be fading out of existence, which causes them to revert back to Primus. And a lot of people believe that Mob of the Dead was set up by Dr. Monty as sort of like his testing area. Mob of the Dead was a testing area where he could test this idea of the cycle, which he's now put into a massive large-scale plan within the overall storyline as this Primus cycle. And again, there's this connection between the Weasel writing comics and now Dr. Monty seems to be drawing out these blueprints here. What is Dr. Monty's hidden agenda? I don't think it's just to keep this perfect world in action. I don't think it's just to constantly restart the cycle. There has to be a deeper meaning with Dr. Monty. We now presume that the Shadow Man was the person who caused Richtofen to hear voices within his head and caused him to become schizophrenic. So has Dr. Monty intervened before? I think so. Why Samantha is looking within this gobblegum machine and why she is present within the New Moon loading screen on Shangri-La, it still makes no sense to me. And why is there this keeper coming out of this portal, out of this teleporter? If we look at the chain of events on this loading screen, first we got Dr. Monty writing this blueprint in this perfect world, then we've got this blueprint from Division 9, then we've got Samantha looking in a gobblegum bubblegum machine, and then we've got a keeper coming out of a teleporter. Is this supposed to be sequential? That's what I'm thinking at the moment. These 4 things could be sequential events. It's honestly so confusing because we've also seen this new Nuketown loading screen, which again has a lot of hidden secrets, but I'm not going to go over that within this video. But moving back onto the topic of Ascension being remade, a lot of people think we could be seeing an Ascension remake now that we've gotten this new moon loading screen. A lot of people think we could be seeing a DLC 5, which features an Ascension remake, a Nuketown remake, and a moon remake, since those are the 3 maps which we have new loading screens for. I'm not 100% convinced we'll be seeing all of these maps remade, because why would they remake Nuketown when it was such a simplistic map? And I will leave a link to a video down in this video's description where I go over all of the evidence that points towards a DLC 5. It's definitely an interesting video to watch. Obviously, I'm not saying a DLC 5 is going to happen. I'm not saying an Ascension remake is going to happen either. I just want to know your opinions on this idea. Do you think we will be seeing an Ascension remake? Because there is one thing that I want to bring up. Before Revelations came out, there was a new update to Black Ops 3, and it was found within the PC files that, interestingly enough, there were new assets added for Kino de Toten, Origins, as well as Der Eisendrache, but there was also new assets added for Ascension. Now, it turns out that these new assets were added so that they could be reused for Revelations, because obviously on Revelations there was a remade section of Kino de Toten, a remade section of Origins, and a remade section of Der Eisendrache. However, Ascension was not present within Revelations. Now, one thing you could argue is that maybe there was going to be a section remade from Ascension on Revelations, but for some reason they didn't end up remaking a section from Ascension. Now, these are not leftover code, these are assets that were physically used within Revelations apart from the Ascension assets. So it begs the question, could we be seeing an Ascension remake within the future? I'm not really sure, but I just thought I would throw in this evidence here. Now, one thing that I also wanted to mention, which I find very, very weird, is that prior to Black Ops 3 coming out, Treyarch released this calendar, and within this calendar they showed a lot of very, very interesting stuff. So within this calendar, they showed a ton of different maps on this calendar, and there was a section from Ascension. But if we notice here, on this section from Ascension, for some weird reason, they have 2 images. In the foreground, they have an image which is from Moon with the zap gun / wave guns, and then we've got an image in the background from Ascension. Why on earth on this calendar is there an image from Moon in place of Ascension when it says clearly Ascension? This is something that's never really made sense to me, but I thought I would bring it up right now because it's something interesting, and I thought it's definitely interesting in regards to this topic of this new Ascension loading screen. Now, the other thing that I wanted to bring up is that prior to Black Ops 3 also coming out, there was a leak by a guy called CJ76. Now, he's not the most reliable leaker. He used to be in the past. He's had a lot of things come true, but, you know, throughout the course of Black Ops 3, he's kind of been a bit off with quite a few things. But prior to Black Ops 3 coming out, he said that we would see a Kino de Toten remake, a Der Riese remake, an Ascension remake, and an Origins remake. And interestingly enough, we have seen a Der Riese remake as the Giants. Now, he posted this leak before we knew this, and we have seen a Kino de Toten remake on Revelations. The stage has been remade, and again, we've seen a section from Origins remade on Revelations. So the only thing left is Ascension once again. That's just a bit more evidence to suggest we could be seeing an Ascension remake. So yeah, I'm not really sure what to make all of this because it's very, very confusing. Let me know all of your thoughts on this down in the comment section down below. Why is Samantha looking into this gobblegum machine? We haven't heard of Samantha since Origins. It's just interesting to see how this storyline is playing out, because I was disappointed with the Revelations ending, just like a lot of people were. But this is getting me a bit more enticed because there's a big chunk that we're missing here. There's a big piece of understanding that we're missing. I hope the comic books are going to start to piece together, and by the time that all the comic books are released, I'm sure it will make a lot more sense. We'll be able to make a lot more sense of who Dr. Monty is and what his agenda is, what exactly he wants, and I think we'll be able to understand this idea of the cycle a lot better. Obviously, cycles have been happening throughout the Call of Duty Zombies storyline. We haven't just seen it on Mob of the Dead and the Primus cycle. Cycles are happening continuously, such as on Die Rise. Pretty much the entire zombie storyline is a mix of little cycles and big cycles. The whole thing is just a complete jumble of different cycles that are taken forth. There is just something deeper to do with Dr. Monty, and I can't put my finger on it. I definitely think he has an evil agenda, but I can't make out what entirely that evil agenda is. Obviously, we heard the quote on Revelations talking about the Shadow Man and Dr. Monty being like 2 worms that have split off from each other, so they're most likely both evil, to be honest. It's just who is more evil and what is Dr. Monty's purpose, because the Shadow Man's just to take over everything and the universe and let the Apothecans rain hell on everything. What is Dr. Monty's evil agenda? Because although he seems to be reverting the storyline and he's really messing with everything and he's really messing with the continuity and stuff like that, what is his agenda? What is his end goal? I don't think it's just to keep continuing this cycle. There is something else, and there is a deeper deeper meaning with Mob of the Dead as well. As he said, the deeper meaning could simply be that when you break the cycle of Mob of the Dead, it breaks this, you know, big cycle with Primus. That could be the overall meaning to Mob of the Dead, other than just the blood vials. But there is something else. There is something I'm missing here. There's something with the Weasel as well, with the fact that he wrote comics and all of the loading screens are comics, and the fact that now it's brought back up this idea of the fact that the zombie storyline is being written out by Dr. Monty. Is there a connection between the two? Because Dr. Monty seemingly seems to be the one who controls the red-eyed zombies. I might make a whole video about this in the future, but I'm convinced that he's the one who controls the red-eyed zombies. A lot of people think this too, but I did mention it in a few videos before. People were just saying that I was being idiotic and that the Apothecans do, but I'm pretty convinced that that's not the case. But anyways, this is going to conclude today's video. This has left me very, very stumped, very, very confused, as has, you know, a lot of the viewers. I'm sure a lot of you guys watching are very confused as well. It's early days. I'm sure, you know, as more of these comics will be released. Obviously, there's a ton of ciphers within this comic as well, which will start getting solved. There has been one solved already, but we can't really take much from that. But as these ciphers continue to get solved, we'll be able to understand, you know, a lot more as well. Obviously, we have a ton of ciphers and revelations that are still yet to be solved and probably won't for years to come. As Blundell said, they're extremely hard to solve and we'll probably never solve them. So anyways, I'm confused as fuck, as I'm sure pretty much all of you guys are. So anyways, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not here for the latest and greatest Black Ops 3 Zombies news information. So anyways, thank you for watching and bye.